Ridiculous.
Ridiculous, but I bet it was for a significant amount of money.
Still ridiculous.
Yeah, but fun. I'd watch it. Look, Jake Paul wants to test himself against actual, not just world champion, but one of the greatest of all time.
And it wasn't fixed, Jake Paul would not survive 45 seconds.
I don't know about that. I think it would take a few rounds.
Really?
But yeah, first of all, Jake is a lot bigger. Jake's a lot bigger.
Well, what way would they?
Not about the number. If it was about the number, we could have started up. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. It makes no sense for me. It's not my what I'm looking at right now.
Joe Rogan was left wide-eyed after hearing that Jake Paul had offered Francis Ngannou a fight following the cancellation of his bout with Gervonta Davis. On his podcast, Rogan labeled the idea wild and borderline reckless for the YouTuber-turned-boxer. He reminded listeners that Ngannou, a former UFC champion with volcanic punching power, is one of the most dangerous men in combat sports. Rogan doubted Jake fully grasps the threat, but admitted the matchup would explode into a global spectacle if it ever came to life.
Nikista calls Francis. This is Francis telling the story. Nikista calls Francis and says, "Hey, we need your help. We need an opponent for Jake. Tank is out." And Francis says, "All right." Francis says, "Well, how can I help you?" Nikista says, "Well, we're looking at an opponent for Jake. Tank Davis is out." And Francis says, "All right, but specifically, how can I help you?" Nikista takes a third swing at the bat. He says, "Well, we need an opponent. We need a boxer. We need a partner. We need somebody to fight Jake. Tank is out." And Francis asks him again, "Okay, what?"
Jake Paul's exhibition with Gervonta Davis collapsed as serious legal allegations mounted against Davis, forcing Paul's team to hunt for a new opponent. One shocking name emerged: Francis Ngannou, the former UFC heavyweight champion whose size, destructive power, and global notoriety make him one of the most intimidating figures in all of combat sport.
In the saga, I think the fight is going to be completely canceled and rescheduled, and now we have potential opponent names and some people being ruled out coming into today. This is not a joke. It was said by Mike Coppinger and others that the #1 candidate to replace Tank Davis in a Jake Paul fight, probably on a different date, was going to be Francis Ngannou. What the But we have an update on that and other potential names that Jake could fight. Again, I think on a separate date, and why I think the Jake and Tank fight is completely off. No more, maybe, no more, we don't think it'll happen. I think
Michael Bisping emphasized the staggering size gap in the rumored Jake Paul versus Francis Ngannou matchup by noting that Paul originally targeted Gervonta Davis, a much smaller lightweight, before that fight collapsed. He pointed out that jumping from Davis to Ngannou puts Paul at the extreme opposite end of physical danger. Bisping stressed that this shift isn't just about skill or experience. It's a leap from facing a compact technician to squaring up with a towering powerhouse whose mass, reach, and knockout threat make the matchup feel wildly disproportionate.
Like Mike Tyson, who's 58, Anderson Silva, who was way past his prime, people like Nate Diaz, who were way smaller. Gervonta Davis really did take the piss. I mean, that was just the craziest shout ever. To go from fighting Gervonta Davis, way smaller, to now fighting boxing Francis Ngannou. I mean, listen, if he does it, fair play. But I just call #1 bullshit on this brother, because I don't see this happening. No.
This is #1 bullshit.
I just don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. Nate Diaz, yeah, 100%. I mean, he beat him once already. I'm sure Nate Diaz would love to get another big payday, because obviously boxing on Netflix and going up against Jake Paul, given his success, given the name that he has, and given the magnitude of his events, Nate Diaz will get paid an absolute fortune once again. We know that it wasn't too long ago Jake Paul was talking about boxing Anthony Joshua, and that never came to fruition. There's absolutely no way he would box Anthony Joshua. If he did, if he was to do something like that, whether it be Anthony Joshua or Francis Ngannou, I'd give him his props, I'd give him his credit, and you never know. Maybe he would do it just for the clout, because in many ways it would be sorry about the airport notifications. It would be, you know, an admirable thing to do, and it would be Jake Paul taking on somebody bigger.
According to Francis Ngannou, Jake Paul's team unexpectedly reached out about replacing Gervonta Davis, leaving him genuinely surprised. He said the proposal came out of nowhere and didn't align with his current plans. Although money was part of the discussion, Ngannou dismissed the idea, saying the terms and timing made no professional sense. He questioned how a switch from Davis to him was being pitched as reasonable, stressing that his decision wasn't about chasing a payday but about taking fights that actually fit his career trajectory.
Like Jake to replace Gervonta, I'm like, who's Jake? You know, like, I was so confused, you know, like, I wasn't expecting that at all. And see, yeah, Jake Paul, you know, he's fighting. I'm like, no, bro, come on. Don't disrespect me like that. And then they even say like, they even come out after and say, and what if the number are good? He sent out some number. I'm like, it's not about the number. If it was about the number, we could have started talk. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. It makes no sense for me. It's not my
Former UFC champion Daniel Cormier delivered a stark warning to Jake Paul about the danger of stepping in with Francis Ngannou. Cormier highlighted Ngannou's horrific punching power, vast experience, and massive physical edge, arguing that Paul simply isn't prepared for a heavyweight striker molded by years of elite MMA combat. He framed the matchup as one where Paul could face real, lasting consequences, far beyond anything he has encountered in previous fights. Cormier's message was direct. This isn't about hype, views, or paychecks. In this scenario, the risk towers over any possible reward.
Paul goes from fighting Gervonta Davis to calling out Francis Ngannou. Jake Paul don't want those problems. I can't say it any different. Jake Paul does not want any Francis Ngannou problems. He don't. He does not want those issues. While I think it's crazy and I credit him for doing that, and I'm surprised he did that, this could be a ploy. Him poking out his chest, saying, I want Francis. You don't want those Francis Ngannou problems. I don't care what Anthony Joshua did to Francis Ngannou. Jake Paul gets in there with Francis. Francis will knock his head off this planet. You don't want those Francis problems. I watched Francis put down Tyson Fury. Sure, Anthony Joshua beat him. But even if Jake got power, I don't think he got power to be dealing with Francis. Because all it takes for one.
Cormier questioned Jake Paul's motives, suggesting the call-out is more about headlines than true competition. He warned that Paul is underestimating what it means to face a heavyweight who can drive power straight through gloves. Ngannou's force is legendary in MMA, and in boxing it becomes even more concentrated. Cormier cautioned that if Jake steps in without grasping the gap between MMA striking power and boxing defense, the fight could end brutally fast.
Right? Boxing is much different than mixed martial arts. The target audience might be the same, but the demographics different. The places where people are brought up are different. There's bigger entourages in boxing. It's just a different world in boxing. We've known that from the very beginning. We know that Gervonta Davis was not going to just play to Jake Paul's rules. I still don't know exactly why this thing is falling apart, but it is falling apart bad. It is bursting at the seams. We are almost exactly where we should have never started. This should have never gotten started, but it did. But we are almost now exactly where we need to be in the fight, and that's it.
Several analysts have raised concerns over the idea of Jake Paul facing Francis Ngannou on extremely short notice, calling it risky for both Paul and the broader storyline surrounding his career. Paul's original opponent, Gervonta Davis, withdrew late, prompting his team to reach out to Ngannou. But as Ngannou noted, stepping in under such conditions makes no sense for his own professional direction. Strategically, the timing is disastrous. Paul would have almost no opportunity to prepare for a heavyweight with Ngannou's destructive power, size, and elite combat experience. Many analysts are now comparing this rumored matchup to Tyson Fury's surprising showdown with Ngannou. Their argument revolves around crossover appeal, stylistic chaos, and spectacle outweighing traditional boxing logic. Just as Fury, a reigning heavyweight champion, struggled far more than expected against an MMA powerhouse, a Paul versus Ngannou clash would echo that dynamic. It would pit a social media-driven boxer against a colossal athlete known for fight-ending power. Fury himself admitted that Ngannou gave him one of the toughest battles of his entire decade, leaving analysts skeptical that Paul could survive even a fraction of that challenge.